She is not who you think she is, not because she lied, but because you did. The lie was yours. It began the moment you confused harmony with stillness, beauty with order, love with relief. You wanted her to be the opposite of your chaos. But Heraclitus would spit on your illusion. He wrote, "It is in conflict that things find their purpose, not in peace." And still, you begged for her to be peace. You begged for her to not change. But the very fabric of existence, including her, is change. Heraclitus did not see the world as a place of stability. He called it a fire, eternal and self-transforming. This world, the same for all, no god nor man has made, but it always was, is, and will be, an ever-living fire, kindling in measures and going out in measures. And what is beauty, if not the brief measure when the fire dances rather than burns? What is the beautiful woman, if not fire wearing grace? The fire smiles at you, soft eyes, delicate voice, skin that quiets your breath, and you believe it will stay that way. But Heraclitus warned, all is flux. Nothing stays still. She is not the same woman you met last year, last month, or even last night. Her beauty remains, but its arrangement shifts, like fire reshaping its flame second by second. You thought you could love her as a fixed thing, but nothing is fixed. Not her, not you, not love. And so you suffer, not because she betrayed you, but because the story you told yourself about her could not survive reality. Heraclitus speaks again. The road up and the road down are the same. The same beauty that once lifted you, now unravels you. You once looked at her and felt godlike. Now you look at her and feel small. But it is not she who shrank you. It is you who never understood what you were touching. You thought beauty was the end point, that once you won her heart, the battle was over. But Heraclitus says, the cosmos thrives on opposition. War is the father of all and king of all. And if war governs the stars, do you really believe the most radiant woman you've ever seen could exist without a storm beneath her smile? You see, her chaos is not personal. It is elemental. She is not fighting you. She is obeying the same law that moves the oceans and splits the atoms, the law of constant transformation. Heraclitus knew it. He felt it. He saw that in every still moment was a hidden tension waiting to break, and so he warned us. Hidden connections are stronger than obvious ones. What she says is not always what she means. What she shows is not always what she holds. And you, man dreaming of peace, are always the last to know. Because you do not study fire, you fall into it. And that is why you suffer. Not because women are dangerous, but because you pretend they're not elemental. You reduce them to comfort when they are chaos wrapped in flesh. You worship their appearance and neglect their nature. But Heraclitus understood nature. He wrote, "Nature loves to hide. And behind the beauty you crave is not safety. It is the rhythm of the universe itself. Conflict, contradiction, renewal, fire. And if you do not approach it with reverence, it will consume you. You believed in stillness because stillness feels safe." She smiled and you froze that smile in your mind like a sacred photograph. She touched you once, and your soul built a cathedral around that gesture. You mistook a moment for a monument. But Heraclitus, whose every word was forged in fire, would have laughed bitterly at your mistake. "You cannot step into the same river twice," he wrote, "for fresh waters are ever flowing in upon you." And yet you kept trying, didn't you? You kept stepping into her, expecting the same warmth, the same kindness, the same version of her you first fell for. But she had already flowed downstream. You see, Heraclitus wasn't offering poetry. He was describing the law of all existence, perpetual becoming. She is not a fixed being. She is a becoming, a process, a living contradiction of light and shadow. One day she nurtures you. The next, she withdraws into mystery. And you call it mood swings. You call it confusion. But what you're really witnessing is the law you tried to ignore. Everything changes and nothing remains still. And that law applies to you too. The man who was once confident now crawls for reassurance. The man who once saw her beauty as a gift now sees it as a leash. Why? Because you invested in the illusion that something divine could be tamed, that beauty could be predicted. But Heraclitus warned that true nature resists definition. He wrote, "The most beautiful order of the world is still a random gathering of things meaningless to man." In other words, even the most enchanting woman may not mean what you think she means. Even the most harmonious feeling may be nothing more than a passing pattern, gone by morning. You don't want to believe that, because if her love changes, what does that say about yours? If her touch was a passing warmth and not a permanent vow, what does that say about your need for her? You wanted her to be the cure to your instability, but Heraclitus taught the opposite. The only constant is change. So now, when she pulls away or grows silent, when her eyes no longer reflect your value, you feel lost. Not because she changed, but because you believed she never would. And this is where Heraclitus drills the blade deeper. He writes, "Opposition brings concord. Out of discord comes the fairest harmony. What feels like chaos now may not be destruction, it may be revelation. You are seeing her as she is, not as you fantasized. And in that raw exposure there is pain, but there is also power. Because once the illusion is shattered, you are finally free to choose. You can keep chasing the image of her you invented, forever walking into a river that is no longer there, or you can evolve. You can become like the fire Heraclitus revered, self-renewing, clear-eyed, unpossessed. But to do that, you must release your addiction to the fixed. You must accept that beauty does not equal permanence, that love, when authentic, is not safe, it is transformative, and transformation is never gentle. The beautiful woman, then, is not your piece, she is your mirror. And if you do not like what you see reflected, it is not her face you must blame. It is your fear of becoming what you were always meant to be, a man forged in fire, not paralyzed by it. You keep asking, why did she change? But Heraclitus would answer with a question of his own. Why did you expect her not to? The very nature of life, he said, is not stillness but struggle, not peace but polarity, not permanence but fire in motion. And if you insist on interpreting beauty as a promise, then you will suffer every time the flame flickers in a direction you didn't predict. You were not betrayed by her. You were betrayed by your own resistance to truth. Heraclitus taught that behind all things is the Logos, a hidden order that governs the dance of opposites. It is not moral, it is not sentimental, it is simply real. He wrote, "Though this Logos is eternal, men are ever unable to understand it. And this is where you fell. You looked at her and believed you saw truth. But what you saw was your own projection, layered onto a creature in constant flux. You didn't see her. You saw your hope, your loneliness, your dream of peace wrapped in perfume and skin. And so, when she pulled away, you called it chaos. But Heraclitus would say, all things come into being through opposition. What you call chaos is merely the breaking of your illusion. It was never the world that betrayed you. It was your refusal to see its structure. You expected her to remain loyal to a version of herself that never truly existed. Not because she's cruel, but because she is alive. And being alive means being in motion. She changed. Of course she did. That is nature. That is Logos. You think the truth lies in her smile, her words, her gestures, but those are the surface. Heraclitus teaches that the hidden harmony is stronger than the obvious one. The real meaning lies beneath. Beneath her beauty is motion. Beneath her desire is fluctuation. Beneath her love is a storm, just like the one buried inside you. But while she flows with it, you fight it. You demand clarity where only rhythm exists. You want guarantees from a cosmos that owes you none. And it's not just her. It's all of it. The moment you attach your value to something external, her attention, her affection, her approval, you become a man enslaved to wind and fire. Heraclitus warned us, to the soul belongs a Logos which increases itself. What does that mean? It means your soul can expand, but only if you stop outsourcing your worth. Only if you stop demanding that she stay the same, so you don't have to grow. You see, she was never meant to be your home. She was meant to be your flame, a reflection of the very world you live in, beautiful, mysterious, and absolutely ungraspable. You can love her, yes. You can dance with her fire, but the moment you try to cage it, you begin to burn. And the burn is not punishment. It is revelation. You are not being destroyed. You are being shown the nature of reality. You are being handed a choice: evolve with the current or drown in resistance. Accept the logos or keep shouting at the storm. Heraclitus didn't offer comfort. He offered truth. And truth doesn't hold your hand. It holds up a mirror. And right now, that mirror is her. Not who she was, not who you hoped she'd be, but who she is right now, changing, wild, unconcerned with your expectations. And if that terrifies you, then maybe the problem was never her chaos, but your addiction to control. Heraclitus did not worship stability. He worshipped fire, not just literal flame, but fire as principle, as judgment, as purifier. All things are an exchange for fire, he wrote, and fire for all things, just as goods for gold and gold for goods. In his eyes, fire was not destruction, it was truth. And the beautiful woman you obsess over? She is fire, not metaphorically, elementally. She burns away your illusions, your fantasies, your shallow confidence. She doesn't break you, she reveals you. That's what men don't understand. They think being with a beautiful woman means they've won, that it's a reward, a crown. But Heraclitus would say it's not a reward, it's a furnace. The closer you stand to her, the more your flaws ignite. Your insecurities become visible, your cracks widen. The parts of you that are untempered scream. And if you haven't done the inner work, if your manhood is built on performance instead of principle, then yes, she will burn you alive. But not because she's cruel, because fire judges everything it touches. Heraclitus wrote, "The people must fight for the law as if for the city wall." What is law in this case, if not your own internal code? Your boundaries, your clarity, your direction. If you do not protect that, if you let her become your law, your compass, your sun, then you will wander into the fire unarmed, and you will call it heartbreak. But it was self-immolation. You burned yourself trying to be what you thought she wanted. Do you see the trap now? You chased her to feel powerful, but power borrowed through beauty is weakness. She didn't make you feel like a man. You made her your source of masculinity. And when she withdrew, she took your identity with her. That is the cost of building your strength around something that changes. Heraclitus warned us, everything flows. You didn't lose her. You lost the version of yourself that couldn't survive without her. And maybe that was necessary. Because you were never meant to be the man who panics when her mood shifts. You were meant to be the man who understands. Of course it shifts. Everything does. The seasons, the tide, the stars. Heraclitus didn't write in fear of change. He wrote in reverence of it. He knew that true strength comes not from resisting chaos, but from standing firm within it. Fire does not fear the wind. It dances with it. And you? You have a choice now. You can continue reacting, pleading, performing, apologizing for breathing too loud, or you can remember who you were before she entered the picture, before the fire, before the obsession. You can rebuild not a man she approves of, but a man that fire cannot shame, a man forged by logos, not longing. Because Heraclitus didn't promise safety, he promised clarity. He knew that the man who survives chaos without needing to control it becomes untouchable, not cold, not cruel, just rooted. Rooted like fire is rooted in its nature, consuming, refining, alive. So look at her again, not as your peace, not as your enemy, but as your test. The storm is not here. The storm is your dependence. And when that dies, you won't just stop burning. You'll start becoming. If you've made it this far, then some part of you is done suffering. Some part of you has realized that the answer isn't in her changing, it's in you awakening. Heraclitus didn't write for cowards. He didn't soothe wounded hearts. He handed you a sword and told you to walk into the fire. Why? Because fire, for Heraclitus, was not something to be feared. It was something to become. He wrote, "The soul is its own source of increase." Meaning what? Meaning that no woman, no relationship, no approval can grow you. Only the confrontation with chaos can. And you've met your chaos. She had a name. She had eyes that looked like forever. She had a voice that made your pulse kneel. But she also had moods that gutted your peace, silences that rewired your mind. And now, finally, you understand. It was never about her. It was about what her presence awakened in you, the need for validation, the fear of being unseen, the desperation to be chosen. That's the raw truth Heraclitus would demand you face. You weren't in love with her. You were addicted to the version of yourself that only existed when she smiled at you. But what if that man wasn't real? What if the fire that burned you was the only thing honest in your entire performance? Heraclitus taught that fire is the origin of all things, and everything returns to it. Fire lives in the death of air, and air lives in the death of fire. Opposites feed each other. So when your peace collapsed and her distance ignited your breakdown, something in you didn't die. It transformed. The man who kneels for comfort has to die, so the man who thrives in clarity can emerge. Heraclitus would call that harmony through conflict. You call it heartbreak, but it's birth. You have to understand this. She is not your enemy. She is the necessary flame that revealed your shape. And once you see her for what she is, not a savior, not a demon, but an ever-shifting expression of nature, you can let her flow as she must, because you no longer need her to be your anchor. You have become your own. That's what it means to become fire. You stop negotiating your truth. You stop adjusting your core to avoid disapproval. You stop treating affection like a drug and start seeing it as a gift, welcome, but not required. You start standing in your own heat, not because it wins her back, but because it burns away everything false. And in that fire, what remains is unshakable. This is the man Heraclitus was writing for. The one who doesn't seek comfort in the chaos of a beautiful woman, but sees her chaos as a reflection of his own power. Never something to fear, only something to understand. Because when you no longer chase stillness in her, you create stillness in yourself. Not the stillness of stagnation, the stillness of centeredness, the kind that flames have when they know what they are. And here's the brutal truth. Most men never get here. Most men spend their lives trying to turn wild rivers into swimming pools, turning goddesses into house pets, turning chaos into calendar appointments. But the few who embrace Heraclitus's wisdom, the men who walk into fire without flinching, become something else entirely. They become men whose value does not shift with someone else's temperature. Men who are neither hardened nor hysterical, just present, grounded, dangerous in the calmest way possible. Because once you become fire, she can no longer burn you. She can only reveal your glow. You've stared into the fire long enough. Now the question is simple. Will you let it forge you? Or will you stagger back into the darkness, nursing the same illusions that scorched you in the first place? Heraclitus didn't preach despair. He preached transformation. He told us, the thunderbolt steers all things, meaning force, conflict, energy. These are the hidden hands of creation. If a beautiful woman's chaos has shattered you, then let that thunderbolt steer you too. Let it split the weak foundations of your identity so something unbreakable can rise in their place. First, reclaim sovereignty over your own mind. Stop interpreting her every silence as a verdict on your worth. Your value preceded her entrance, and it will outlive her exit. Heraclitus wrote, "A man's character is his fate. So strengthen character. Audit your habits, discipline your impulses, finish what you start, and guard your word like gold. Character is the only currency that never devalues when beauty drifts with the current. Second, anchor desire to purpose, not to approval. Let attraction move through you like wind through a tree, felt, acknowledged, but never allowed to uproot you. The logos within you must set the rhythm. Everything else is a passing storm. Cultivate work that outlives infatuation, craft, mission, brotherhood, a code you'll keep even when no one applauds. When purpose is clear, chaos becomes seasoning, not sustenance. Third, practice radical presence. Heraclitus warned, eyes and ears are poor witnesses for men with barbarian souls. Translation, if your mind is primitive, clinging, panicking, projecting, you will misread every signal she sends. Train awareness through stillness, breath, and observation until you can watch her flux without demanding it freeze for your comfort. Then, and only then, can you love without chains, because you no longer fear her motion. Finally, hold boundaries like armor. but wield kindness like a sword. Fire respects what will not burn. When she tests, you clarify, never beg. When she withdraws, you remain full, not empty. When she invites, you step in as an equal flame, never as a moth. That balance is the harmony hidden beneath conflict, the union of opposites Heraclitus exalted. Do this, and the next time you stand before beauty, you will not confuse her radiance with rescue. You will greet her as a fellow traveler in flux, two fires meeting, neither one needing to devour the other to stay bright. In that moment, you will know freedom, not from women, but from the illusions about them that once ruled you. If this message lit a spark in the ashes of your old beliefs, fuel the blaze so more men can see the light. Like the video, share it with a brother who's lost in the flames, and subscribe for the truths we refuse to sugarcoat. Want to keep this fire burning? Support the channel through the link in the description. Stand tall, burn clear, and never again mistake chaos for catastrophe.